What's up, guys? It's your boys Wokey back out with another Chris Watts video. And this video I was kind of hesitant to make because we all know that we're trying to find the answers and there's a lot of stuff that's not new. But Chris Watts' life in 2025, shocking new details from behind bars. Call me intrigued. I'm going to take a look at this and see if there's anything more we can find out from the YouTube channel Secret in the Dark. Now, join me, but before we go any further, make sure you guys are subscribed to my YouTube channel by hitting that whiteboard icon down at the bottom right. Hit the bell icon next to it, so when I do post videos like this one, you guys will get that little ring notification that I've posted that video, and then you guys can watch, comment, like, and share. And again, thank you all so much for the love and support. I'm truly blessed. Can't wait to see what the future holds. We're on our way to hopefully reaching 100K, but I need your guys' help. And then make sure you guys go over to Secret in the Dark and do the exact same thing. Link is in the description. Go give the love. Go give the support and help them out. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Disclaimer.
Nicole?
Yes.
In this just-released video, we're seeing the unsung hero whose determination may have stopped Chris Watts from getting away with murdering.
Somebody says that they can see Nicole in that background.
May have stopped Chris Watts.
Like when you look through here. Let me see if I can slow it down a little bit. Slow it down.
From getting
Nope. Well, there's Cindy. You can see her from a mile away. Nope, never.
away with
Somebody said it was this person. That's not Nicole.
murdering
Ugh.
his pregnant wife.
Yeah, you guys probably don't want to watch the whole thing like that.
And two little daughters. Nicole Atkinson knew something was wrong when her best friend Shanann Watts didn't turn up for a doctor's appointment. She immediately called police.
I can't get a hold of her. I've called, I've texted. Her car's in the garage. Her shoes she wears every single day right in the front door.
The police body cam video shows Chris Watts arriving home. Imagine his surprise at finding cops
And then halfway he starts, oh, I gotta start running, like he forgot.
already at his house. He had just disposed of the bodies of his wife and children in an oil storage facility where he worked.
Nobody's heard from me, nobody's seen it.
But thanks to Nicole, he's had no time to get rid of personal items that his wife would have taken with her if she was staying with a friend, as Chris Watts was claiming.
Chris Watts was a man who seemed to have it all: a growing family, a beautiful home in a quiet neighborhood, and a wife who adored him. Shanann Watts, vibrant and driven, shared their lives with the world, painting a picture of happiness and unity. Together, they raised two little girls, Bella and Celeste, who brought light and laughter into their home. With another child on the way, it appeared their future was brighter than ever. But on August...
I can't see how this man destroyed these little innocent souls. Children bring so much life to a home. I am scared for when my children grow up and they become adults and they move out. But I mean, there's always grandchildren. But it's just the giggles, the laughs, the running around, sticky tables and dishes everywhere. It reminds you of life. It reminds you of happiness and joy. And just, that's one reason why I do this, is because I feel that somebody was involved with taking these girls out and Chris just destroying his family because of a mistress. It really upsets me because I love my children and children all over the place because they are our future. If we don't have our children, the world doesn't exist anymore. So
August 13, 2018, that image shattered. Shanann, 15 weeks pregnant, and her two daughters vanished without a trace. The community rallied, desperate to find answers. Friends and neighbors described a loving family that couldn't possibly be touched by tragedy. Chris stood before cameras, pleading for their safe return. His voice was calm, his demeanor composed.
and lied.
Yet, behind those eyes, investigators would soon uncover a story so disturbing, it would leave the nation in shock. This is the story of Chris Watts, a man who turned his back on everything he claimed to cherish. A father who made a choice that defies comprehension. A husband whose secrets destroyed the lives of those who trusted him the most. Chris Watts' childhood and early life were marked by elements that might provide insight into his later actions, though much of his life prior to the murders has remained somewhat private. What is known about his upbringing paints a picture of a seemingly normal family life, with some emotional complexities.
The only thing that was really bad in this marriage was the financial part. Chris sitting there saying, "Oh, Shanann was mean." Grow up here, dude. Like, if you didn't feel appreciative or you didn't feel that you were getting emotions from your wife, it's called communication. Where was that? Oh, you were shy and scared to talk to your wife? That's your fault. No one else but yours. And yet he continuously blames Shanann. His family blames Shanann. But yet Shanann is the one that got murdered. Okay.
To understand the depths of this tragedy, we must first look at the lives of those it destroyed. Chris Watts was born on May 16, 1985, in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He was the son of Ronnie and Cindy Watts. Chris has an older sister named Jamie. His relationship with his father, Ronnie, was reportedly strained. Ronnie, a truck driver, was known to be emotionally distant, which may have influenced Chris' ability to express his emotions. Ronnie Watts has also been described as somewhat controlling and demanding, which could have led to tension in their father-son relationship. However, Chris remained close to his mother, Cindy, who was described as more nurturing. Cindy Watts has been described as a loving and doting mother. Growing up, Chris was reportedly a quiet, introverted child who didn't make waves. Those who knew him described him as polite and respectful but somewhat withdrawn. He wasn't involved in many extracurricular activities or social groups, and he appeared to
Baseball,
keep a low profile.
cars.
Chris was an average student with no significant achievements or challenges noted in his early academic life. His classmates described him as unremarkable in terms of personality, and he didn't seem to attract much attention. Though little is publicly known about Chris' mental health during his childhood and adolescence, there are suggestions that he may have struggled with emotional expression. This emotional restraint could have
It's called seek help, talk to people, or therapy, or not murdering your family.
contributed to his difficulties in expressing his frustrations in healthy ways as an adult. There are limited details about Chris' dating life during his high school years, though he did eventually meet his first wife, Shanann, in 2010. Shanann Catherine Watts
His first wife. What, did he get married?
was born on January 10, 1984, in
That'd be
Passaic,
gross.
New Jersey. Her friends and family described her as determined, loving, and fiercely loyal. Despite struggling with health issues, Shanann built a successful career and a social media presence where she openly shared her journey, her triumphs, her struggles, and above all, her love for her family. Chris met Shanann through a mutual friend on Facebook.
Found that
They
out
began
yesterday.
dating in 2010, and their relationship moved quickly. According to Shanann, Chris was initially very charming, polite, and kind. He gave her attention that she had longed for in previous relationships, which led her to believe he was the perfect partner. They married in 2012 and soon moved to Frederick, Colorado, to start their new life. The Watts daughters, Bella Marie, 4 years old, and Celeste Catherine, 3 years old, affectionately nicknamed Cece, were the light of their lives. Bella was shy and thoughtful, always looking after her younger sister. Cece, by contrast, was
Somebody mentioned that CC was not Chris's. There's a video that some YouTube channel made. What are you on? Like,
adventurous and spirited, with a laugh that could fill any room. Shanann doted on her girls, frequently posting pictures and videos of their adventures together, from family outings to simple moments at home. Chris and Shanann Watts were the kind of couple people admired. Shanann, an ambitious and optimistic mother, shared their life on social media, posts filled with love, laughter, and milestones. Her husband, Chris, was a quiet man who supported his wife's dreams, providing a sense of stability that seemed unshakable. By all appearances, the Watts family had it all. Chris worked as an operator for Anadarko Petroleum, providing financial stability. Shanann, a dedicated entrepreneur, built a career through a health and wellness company. She took pride in her work and her ability to provide for her family. It was a community where the Watts family seemed to thrive. Their home, nestled in a quiet cul-de-sac, became a place of celebration and joy. From birthday parties to family movie nights, Shanann shared it all, often captioned with words like blessed and grateful. August 13, 2018, began like any other day in the Watts household, or so it seemed. In the early hours of the morning, Shanann returned home from a business trip to Arizona. Nicole Atkinson had dropped her off around 1:48 a.m. Shanann, exhausted but eager to see her daughters and reconnect with Chris, walked into a house that she believed was still filled with love. What happened next remains one of the most chilling and unfathomable acts of betrayal in modern true crime history.
I don't think the murder happened until they woke up.
Nicole Atkinson, Shanann's close friend, became alarmed when Shanann missed a doctor's appointment and failed to respond to texts or calls, a behavior entirely out of character. Nicole went to the Watts home and, unable to find Shanann or the girls, contacted the police. When officers arrived, they conducted a welfare check. Chris was calm, almost unnervingly so, as he let them into the
And the first thing he goes to is his car.
house. The scene inside was strange. Shanann's phone, purse, and medications were still there. The children's beds were unmade, and their favorite toys were untouched. Despite these troubling signs, Chris insisted that Shanann had taken the girls on a playdate. As the hours turned into days, his calm explanations began to raise questions, and whispers of doubt spread through the town. How could this seemingly devoted husband and father stand before the world, begging for the return of his family, while hiding a truth so horrifying it would leave a nation speechless? What led Chris Watts to commit the ultimate betrayal? And what could drive a man to destroy the family he once claimed to love? Nicole, however, wasn't convinced. She urged investigators to dig deeper. Chris's behavior, she
Man, look at that. Just the behavior right here. Woo!
noted, didn't align with that of a worried husband and father. The detectives shared her
And then here, oh crap, he got it caught on camera.
concerns and began piecing together the timeline of events. As the search intensified, law enforcement obtained security footage from a neighbor's home. The video showed Chris backing his truck into the driveway early that morning and loading something into the back. Chris claimed he was packing tools for work, but the footage told a different story. Investigators noticed his movements were deliberate and unusually careful. Chris Watts was arrested on August 15, 2018, just days after his wife, Shanann, and their two daughters, Bella and Celeste, were reported missing. Initially, Chris claimed that he had no idea what happened to Shanann or the children. However, during a police interview, his story kept changing, and he became increasingly nervous. Investigators began to press him, and the inconsistencies in his story prompted a deeper investigation into his involvement. Authorities also examined Chris's phone records. They discovered a series of text messages between him and Shanann in the days leading up to her death. Shanann had expressed her concerns about their marriage, pleading with Chris to be honest about his feelings. Chris's responses were cold and detached, a stark contrast to Shanann's emotional messages. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Chris had been having an affair with Nicole Kessinger, a co-worker. Nicho Kessinger, Watts' mistress, was invited for questioning and she was cooperative.
You to tears yet? That was my goal. Kidding, of course. I'm sure you're wondering. Blank, I'm even writing you. I know a stranger, but I am about you and your situation. I can't help it. Is there anything you need? Can I send you so? Oh, this is the letters that he gets in prison. I thought this was something that was new.
According to Kessinger, she and Watts began a romantic relationship in June 2018, just 2 months before the murders. She claimed she was unaware that Watts was still married, as he told her he was in the process
Really?
of divorcing Shanann. She has stated that she ended the relationship after learning about the murders and realizing that Watts had lied to her about his marital status.
Yeah,
Kessinger has maintained that she had no knowledge of Watts' plans to harm his family. She claimed she only learned of their deaths through news reports after they were reported missing. She cooperated with law enforcement during the investigation, providing phone records, text messages, and interviews. She stated that she felt deceived by Watts and was horrified by his actions. Investigators believe Watts' affair with Kessinger was a significant factor in his motive for the murders. Text messages and internet searches revealed that Kessinger had been looking up topics like how to marry your mistress and how it feels to be in love with someone before the murders.
And that doesn't raise red flags to anybody in law enforcement?
However, these searches do not prove involvement in the crime. Kessinger has faced public backlash, with some accusing her of knowing more than she admitted.
That's me.
However, law enforcement found no evidence linking her to the murders. She reportedly changed.
They never even looked. When, what's his name, D.A. Rourke sat there and said she hampered the investigation, but we could not find that digital evidence. We don't want you to find digital evidence. We want you to find evidence.
Her name and went into hiding after the case due to intense media scrutiny and threats.
Until just recently.
As the pressure mounted, Chris's story began to fall apart. On August 15, 2018, he agreed to take a polygraph test, a decision that would prove disastrous.
Why didn't they ask Nicole to take a polygraph test?
During the test, Chris was asked direct questions about the disappearance of his family. The results were clear, he failed every single question. Confronted with the evidence,
Did he fail the one that was, is your name Chris Watts?
Chris initially claimed that Shanann had killed the children in a fit of rage after learning about his affair, and that he had strangled her in retaliation. It was a story designed to shift blame, but investigators didn't believe it. They continued to press Chris, and eventually, he broke. Chris later confessed to investigators what transpired inside their home that morning. According to him, Shanann confronted him about their relationship after noticing his distant behavior in recent weeks. She asked him the question that had haunted her for months, "Are you seeing someone else?" Chris admitted that he was.
Oh!
Shanann, devastated, reportedly told Chris that he would never see their children again. It was then, Chris claimed.
But see, that's where it doesn't make sense. If she sat there and said that, you'll never see your kids again, why would you murder them? That doesn't make sense. Or does it come to the point of, oh, if I can't have you or if I can't have them, no one can? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense that, oh, you can't take my kids away from me, so I'm going to murder them. That makes no sense.
That something inside him snapped. In what he described as a moment of rage, he strangled Shanann in their bedroom, ending the life of the woman he once vowed to love and protect. As Shanann lay lifeless, Bella and Celeste woke up, confused and frightened. Chris, in an act of chilling calculation, wrapped Shanann's body in a sheet and carried her down the stairs.
He should do
Bella,
the same
just
thing.
4 years old, reportedly asked, "What's wrong with mommy?" Chris assured her everything was fine. But nothing could be further from the truth. Chris loaded Shanann's body into his truck, placing it on the floor of the back seat. Then, he strapped Bella and Celeste into their car seats as if it were just another morning.
The car seats were at the house, so that part's wrong.
Drove them to a remote oil field owned by his employer, Anadarko Petroleum, a location he knew would be isolated and far from prying eyes.
But we found out yet in yesterday's video why this place was probably picked, because it had a leak. So,
When they arrived, Chris carried out the next horrifying phase of his plan. He smothered Celeste first, using a blanket to take the life of his youngest daughter. Bella, realizing what was happening, pleaded with her father. "Daddy, no," were her final words before Chris ended her life in the same way. Chris buried Shanann's body in a shallow grave near the oil site. As for Bella and Celeste, he placed their small bodies into separate oil tanks. Anadarko Petroleum site, their final resting places marked only by the emptiness of the fields around them. It was a crime so calculated, so devoid of humanity, that even the most seasoned investigators were left shaken. Leading detectives to the oil field where he had hidden the bodies of the victims. Shanann's body was found in a shallow grave, while Bella and Celeste were retrieved from the oil tanks. The conditions in which the children were placed shocked even the most experienced officers, solidifying this case as one of the most heinous crimes they had ever encountered. The evidence against Chris was overwhelming: security footage, text messages, GPS data from his truck, and his own confession. There was no doubt, Chris Watts had coldly and methodically murdered his family. Chris Watts's confession seemed to bring the case to a close, but what investigators uncovered in the aftermath would leave the nation reeling. After his confession, Chris Watts was officially arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of murder of a child under the age of 12, and other related charges. He was later denied bond, and he was held in custody at the Weld County Jail.
does anybody know what his bond was? Let me see. I kind of want to know. Chris Watts Mount. Let me see if I can find it. Shows here that he was never given bond. He was never given the option for bond. Well, that's good.
As the court proceedings began, the evidence against Chris painted a picture of cold calculation. While Chris initially claimed that the murders were a spontaneous act of rage, prosecutors revealed a premeditated plan. In the days leading up to the murders, Chris had displayed behaviors that suggested he was
Yeah, do we not want to talk about the little blanket over, or the tissue paper over the doll on the couch?
preparing to erase his family from his life entirely. Phone records showed that Chris had been researching vacations and future plans with his mistress, Nicole Kessinger, even as Shanann pleaded with him to save their marriage.
Sick.
He had
Big
searched for
word.
wedding venues and love songs, painting a chilling contrast to the horror that awaited his wife and daughters. The most heart-wrenching twist came from the autopsy reports. Bella, the eldest daughter, had fought for her life. She had defensive injuries, indicating that she had struggled against her father during her final moments. Her last words,
Bit her
"Daddy, no," echoed in the courtroom as a devastating
tongue
reminder
and-
of the innocence and trust betrayed by someone she loved unconditionally. Shanann's family, sitting stoically in the courtroom, listened as the prosecutor detailed the timeline of the murders.
And they
Chris had
didn't know
spent the
that there was
days
sex.
before the killings pretending everything was normal, taking his daughters to birthday parties, texting Shanann about baby names, and planning a future he had no intention of fulfilling. The prosecution emphasized that Chris's actions were not impulsive. They were deliberate. The murders were a calculated effort to remove his family so he could pursue a new life with his mistress. He had seen his daughters as obstacles and his wife as a burden.
Idiot.
For Chris Watts, his family was disposable. The final blow came when the court revealed that Chris had initially planned to frame Shanann for the murders. He had intended to leave the bodies in the house and stage the scene to make it look like a domestic dispute turned fatal. This plan unraveled under the weight of mounting evidence, leaving Chris with no option but to confess.
Is this the new evidence? Or just a theory?
As these details emerged, the public grappled with the enormity of his betrayal. How could a man who appeared so mild-mannered commit such unspeakable acts? What could lead a father to turn against his
Lust and I think money fueled this case. Those two things alone can make a man destroy and move mountains, or think that they're moving mountains, and what Chris Watts thought he was doing.
own children? The answers, if they existed, provided no solace. The twist in this case wasn't just the crime, it was the calculated, heartless manner in which it was carried out. Chris Watts wasn't just a murderer, he was a man who had meticulously planned the destruction of his own family while maintaining a facade of normalcy. On November 6, 2018, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to the murders of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and his unborn son, Nico, for several reasons that seemed to be a combination of legal strategy, psychological factors, and the overwhelming evidence against him. One of the main reasons Chris Watts chose to plead guilty was likely to avoid the death penalty. Colorado, where the murders took place, has the death penalty, though it has a moratorium on executions.
Not anymore.
Prosecutors were seeking the death penalty, and by pleading guilty, Watts was able to ensure that he would receive life sentences without the possibility of parole rather than facing a potential execution. This was a significant factor in his decision, as it meant he could avoid the fear and uncertainty of a death penalty trial. Pleading guilty was a strategy employed by Watts and his legal team to secure a plea agreement. By admitting guilt, Watts was able to avoid a lengthy trial, which could have led to more media scrutiny and potentially more evidence being revealed.
Which would have been
It
nice.
also allowed the legal proceedings to move faster, which may have been in his interest to avoid public spectacle and further damage to his family. Additionally, the plea deal spared the court and the victims' families the emotional trauma of a trial, where graphic details of the murders would have been presented in open court.
Which would be bad.
In his confession, Chris Watts seemed to express genuine remorse, though it's debated how sincere this remorse was.
But it's funny that Chris Watts had a choice in making this case fast. No, he didn't. I feel it was still somebody else that was trying to make it look like they could finish it super fast and get it done and over with as quickly as possible.
It's possible that the weight of his actions, and the irreversible consequences, led him to plead guilty as a way to take responsibility for the murders and avoid putting his family through further pain. But it offered little solace to Shanann's family. They were left with unimaginable grief and a haunting question that can never truly be answered: why?
Why?
Chris Watts was sentenced to 5 life terms without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 84 years for unlawful termination of a pregnancy and tampering with a deceased.
Which means he's never getting out. There are people that are still thinking this man could get out. The way that this man is getting out is through a body bag.
Human body. As he began his life behind bars, the nation struggled to comprehend the depths of his betrayal. During the sentencing hearing of her son, Chris Watts, on November 19, 2018, Cindy Watts delivered an emotional statement. While a complete verbatim transcript of her speech isn't readily available,
And it's the only time he actually cried.
key excerpts have been reported. Cindy addressed her son directly, stating, "We have loved you from the beginning and we still love you now." She continued, "We love you. And we forgive you, son." She conveyed her ongoing struggle to comprehend the tragedy, saying, "I am still struggling to understand how and why this tragedy occurred. I may never be able to understand and accept it, but I pray for peace and healing for all of us." Cindy emphasized the family's unwavering support, stating, "This might be hard for some to understand, how I can sit here under these circumstances, and tell you all, although we are heartbroken, although we can't imagine what could have led us to this day, we love you." These excerpts highlight Cindy Watts' profound grief, enduring love for her son, and her hope for understanding and healing in the aftermath of the tragedy. Shanann's parents, Frank and Sandra Rozusek, spoke publicly about the loss of their daughter and grandchildren. They described Shanann as a vibrant, loving woman who would do anything for her family. Bella and Celeste were remembered as two beautiful souls who brought light and joy to everyone they met. Despite their unimaginable loss, the Rozusek family has worked to keep Shanann and her daughter's memories alive, sharing their story as a way to advocate against domestic violence and familial betrayal. With Bella and Celeste's bodies submerged in oil, there were concerns that the oil could have caused irreversible damage to the remains, making it difficult for proper viewing. In addition, there were
That's why Chris Watts had the autopsies, like the detailed ones, sealed for 50 years. Why, Chris?
safety concerns about the possibility of an explosion or reaction when the bodies were removed from the tanks, as oil vapors could have been present in the enclosed space of the oil tanks. As a result, to protect the integrity of the remains and to prevent any potential issues, the bodies of the children were buried in closed caskets. This decision was made out of
Special
respect for
ones.
the children, to preserve their dignity, and to ensure their burial was handled with care despite the tragic circumstances of their deaths. Shanann Watts and her daughter's final resting place is in Memorial Garden Cemetery in Charlotte, North Carolina. They were buried there after her family arranged a private funeral for them. The funeral took place on August 21, 2018, and her family and close friends attended the ceremony to honor their life. The service was emotional, with Shanann's family members remembering her as a devoted mother, wife, and daughter. It was a devastating loss, particularly for her family, who were grappling with the horrific circumstances of her death and the murder of her two daughters.
I will not watch
Their
that
grave
movie.
is marked with a headstone that includes a tribute to Shanann. The burial sites are a place where her family can visit and remember her and the children. This case has left an indelible mark on Frederick, Colorado, and on all who followed it. It serves as a sobering reminder that evil can hide in plain sight, and that the bonds of family, so often cherished, can, in rare and tragic cases, be irreparably broken.
I'm taken advantage
So,
of.
we are left with the haunting reality: Chris Watts wasn't a stranger to his family. He was their protector, their provider, their father and husband. And yet, in the end, he became their destroyer. While in prison, Chris Watts has claimed that he found God after being sentenced to life in prison for the murders of his wife Shanann and their daughters
Should've
Bella
found
and
them
Celeste.
sooner.
After his arrest and sentencing, Watts reportedly began studying the Bible and attending religious services while in prison. He has described finding
What else does he got to do?
faith as a way to cope with the guilt and consequences of his actions. In letters and interviews, he has said that he feels a sense of forgiveness from God, which gives him peace. Watts spends a significant amount of his time in prison reading the Bible, praying, and reflecting on Scripture. He has reportedly joined Bible study groups with other inmates and writes about his faith in letters to people who reach out to him. In an interview from prison, Watts said he believes God has forgiven him for his crimes, though he struggles to forgive himself. He has described feeling a spiritual awakening and has credited this with helping him deal with the emotional weight of his actions. Watts has written to various people from prison, discussing his faith and urging others to turn to God. In these letters, he talks about the importance of forgiveness and
Well, guess what? We were already supporting God, and we already knew God. You're the one that came to the party late, so
repentance, often quoting Scripture. Chris Watts has made several statements about his newfound relationship with God since his incarceration. Here are some of his direct quotes. In a letter to his mother, Cindy Watts, he wrote, "I'm still a dad.
no, you're not.
I'm still a son. No matter what. Now, I can add servant of God to that mix. He has shown me peace, love and forgiveness, and that's how I live every day." During a prison interview, Watts stated, "I never knew I could have a relationship with God like I do now. It's like the amazing grace with all of this." He also mentioned,
In prison, and yet that's why he's told some lawyers that he wants to get out.
"I know there's a purpose for everybody. I just hope that I can find mine." These statements reflect Watts' claims of experiencing a spiritual transformation during his time in prison. Many have been skeptical of Watts' religious conversion, viewing it as insincere or self-serving. Critics argue that his faith might be a way to rationalize his crimes or cope with the guilt, rather than true remorse.
That's what it is.
Others believe that even in the darkest circumstances, people can experience genuine spiritual transformations. As of January 2025, Chris Watts is incarcerated at Dodge Correctional Institution, a maximum security prison in Waupun, Wisconsin. He is serving multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole for the 2018 murders of his pregnant wife, Shanann, and their 2 young daughters, Bella and Celeste. Watts works as a custodian within the prison, performing cleaning and maintenance tasks. He has co-authored a devotional book titled Revelation in the Reckoning with a fellow inmate, reflecting his claimed spiritual transformation. Due to the nature of his crimes, Watts is largely isolated from the general inmate population for his safety. He maintains a low profile, avoiding eye contact and limiting interactions with other prisoners.
He keeps his head down
Despite
a lot.
his isolation, Watts has received letters from individuals outside the prison, including female pen pals. Some of these correspondences have been made public, revealing insights into his reflections and mental state. Reports suggest that Watts experiences remorse and reflects daily on his actions. He has feelings of guilt and seeks forgiveness through his religious practices. Physical condition. Over time, Watts has reportedly gained weight and lost a significant amount of hair, contributing to a noticeable change in his appearance since his incarceration. In summary, Chris Watts leads a life of isolation and routine within the confines of Dodge Correctional Institution, engaging in custodial work and religious activities while reflecting on the gravity of his crimes. Watts remains in prison serving multiple life sentences without parole. While he has claimed to have found peace through
He doesn't have the thrive or the ambition to do anything anymore.
religion, his crimes and the betrayal of his family continue to overshadow his spiritual journey in the eyes of the public. What drives a person to commit such an unthinkable act? Was it greed? Selfishness?
Lust,
Or something far more complicated that we may never fully understand?
money,
These are questions that linger
Bad
as we
stuff.
try to make sense of a tragedy that defies comprehension.
3-way, everything that Nicole Googled
What do you think about this case?
pisses me off.
Demand even greater consequences. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you or someone you know is struggling in a toxic or abusive relationship, there are resources that can help.
Yes.
Don't wait until it's too late. If you found this video insightful, please give it a like and share it with others who follow true crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more cases like this one, and hit the
So yes, go subscribe to them. Give them some love. I wouldn't necessarily there was anything new. More theories, I would say. Definitely interesting to think about. But again, I can't say that I agree to disagree, but I just want to know your guys' thoughts, of course, down below and see what we all think. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, share with your friends, and we will see you guys in the next video. Please take care, be safe, and as always, keep nerding on, and we will see you guys in the next one.